Abigail Lee Kemp. She had once styled herself online as a top Instagram model, but by 2015, 24-year-old Abigail Lee Kemp of Smyrna, Georgia, was living a double life that would end in a federal courtroom. According to the Justice Department, she joined a small crew of armed robbers, Louis Jones III, Larry Bernard Gilmore, and Michael Bernard Gilmore, who conspired to strike jewelry stores across the southeastern United States. Between April 2015 and January 2016, investigators said, the group executed 6 armed robberies in Panama City Beach, Florida, Woodstock and Dawsonville, Georgia, Bluffton, South Carolina, Sevierville, Tennessee, and Mabon, North Carolina, stealing over $4 million in jewelry. Inside each store, Abigail Lee Kemp was the one employees saw. Wearing athletic gear and carrying a gun, she ordered staff to the floor, zip-tied their hands, and cleared display cases while the men waited outside, monitoring police scanners. Surveillance video from one Georgia store helped agents tie her to similar heists in other states. On January 8, 2016, FBI agents arrested her and Jones together at her apartment in Smyrna. Federal prosecutors in the Northern District of Florida charged them under the Hobbs Act for conspiracy to interfere with commerce by robbery, along with multiple counts of using a firearm during a violent crime. Facing overwhelming evidence, Abigail entered a guilty plea on December 29, 2016, admitting her part in the coordinated string of robberies. On January 13, 2017, a federal judge in Panama City sentenced Abigail Lee Kemp to 10 years in federal prison and ordered $1,499,690 in restitution to the victimized jewelry companies. Anna Sorokin. She arrived in New York in 2013 under the name Anna Delvey, claiming to be a German heiress with a multi-million-dollar trust fund waiting overseas. In reality, her name was Anna Sorokin, born in 1991 near Moscow and raised in a working-class family in Germany. She spoke with confidence, wore designer clothes, and quickly inserted herself into Manhattan's elite social scene, mingling with art collectors, hoteliers, and financiers who believed her every word. Between 2013 and 2017, Anna built an elaborate web of lies. She told friends and investors she planned to open a private arts club called the Anna Delvey Foundation inside the historic Church Missions House on Park Avenue South. To make it look real, she created fake bank statements and forged wire transfer confirmations to convince banks she had assets worth tens of millions in Europe. Behind the illusion, she was staying in luxury hotels she couldn't afford, racking up unpaid bills, and living on the kindness of friends who believed her inheritance was delayed. In May 2017, Anna persuaded her friend Rachel DeLoachi Williams, a photo editor at Vanity Fair, to accompany her on a lavish trip to Morocco, promising that her trust fund would cover the cost. When the hotel demanded payment, Anna's cards failed and Rachel was forced to cover more than $62,000 in expenses that were never reimbursed. By then, multiple hotels, banks, and associates had filed complaints over unpaid debts and falsified financial records. Her charade ended a few months later. On October 3, 2017, Anna Sorokin was arrested during a sting operation in California. Investigators from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office had tracked her to a rehab facility in Malibu and extradited her to New York to face charges of grand larceny and theft of services. Her trial began in March 2019 before Judge Diane Kiesel in Manhattan Supreme Court. Prosecutors described her as a calculated con artist who posed as an heiress to steal nearly $275,000 from banks, hotels, and acquaintances. The defense argued she merely tried to fake it till she made it, claiming she intended to pay everyone back once her business succeeded. On April 25, 2019, a jury found Anna Sorokin guilty on multiple counts, including grand larceny in the second degree and theft of services, but acquitted her on one major attempted larceny charge involving a larger loan. 2 weeks later, on May 9, 2019, she was sentenced to 4 to 12 years in state prison, fined $24,000, and ordered to pay $199,000 in restitution. Judge Diane Kiesel told her in court that she was blinded by the glitter and glamour of New York City before officers led her away to begin serving her sentence. Mona Faiz Montrage. Known to millions online as Hajia for real, she was once one of Ghana's most glamorous Instagram figures, a singer and lifestyle influencer who flaunted designer fashion and luxury living to over 3 million followers. But behind that digital persona, federal prosecutors say she was part of an international fraud ring that preyed on vulnerable older Americans. Between 2013 and 2019, Mona worked with members of a West Africa-based criminal enterprise that conducted romance scams targeting individuals in the United States. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, the group used fake online identities to lure victims into long-distance relationships, convincing them to send money under false pretenses. Some victims were told their partners needed help transferring gold from overseas, others that they were assisting U.S. soldiers or officials facing fabricated emergencies. Investigators say Mona personally controlled bank accounts that received more than $2 million in proceeds from those scams. In one case, she allegedly sent a victim a falsified tribal marriage certificate claiming they were married in Ghana and persuaded the victim to wire nearly $89,000 in small transfers, all of which were tied to the fraudulent scheme. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York charged her with conspiracy to commit wire fraud, money laundering conspiracy, receipt of stolen money, and conspiracy to receive stolen money. She was arrested in the United Kingdom on November 10, 2022, extradited to the United States in May 2023, and formally arraigned in Manhattan Federal Court. On February 21, 2024, Mona Faiz Montrage pleaded guilty to one count of conspiracy to receive stolen money, admitting her role in handling funds connected to the romance scam operation. On June 28, 2024, U.S. District Judge J. Paul Otekin sentenced her to 12 months and 1 day in federal prison. The court also ordered her to forfeit $216,475 and pay restitution totaling $1,387,458. In a statement following the sentencing, her attorneys described the outcome as fair and expressed pride that the case had concluded without further escalation. Jeremy Ray Meeks. Jeremy Meeks was born on February 7, 1984, in Tacoma, Washington, and grew up in California, where his early life was marked by hardship and brushes with the law. Court documents show that by 2002, he had already been convicted of grand theft in Solano County and served 2 years in state prison. Over the following years, he accumulated additional arrests for theft and forgery, reflecting a steady pattern of criminal behavior before his name ever became known to the public. On the morning of June 18, 2014, officers from the Stockton Police Department, joined by federal and state agents, carried out a large-scale gang suppression operation known as Operation Ceasefire. During that sweep, Jeremy Meeks and 3 other men were taken into custody in Stockton's Weston Ranch neighborhood after they attempted to leave a residence under surveillance. Inside the vehicle Meeks was driving, investigators discovered a loaded .45 caliber semi-automatic pistol, 2 extended magazines, and ammunition. Because Meeks was a convicted felon, possessing a firearm violated federal law. The Stockton District Attorney's Office referred the case to federal prosecutors in the Eastern District of California. The arrest itself might have gone largely unnoticed, but it didn't, because when the Stockton Police Department posted Meeks's mugshot on its official Facebook page, it ignited an internet firestorm. The photo went viral within hours, attracting more than 100,000 likes, tens of thousands of comments, and worldwide coverage. The image of a man with light gray eyes and chiseled features, wearing a blue jumpsuit and neutral expression, became an instant meme, earning him the nickname Hot Mugshot Guy. Behind the viral fame, however, the criminal case moved forward. Federal prosecutors charged Jeremy Meeks with 1 count of being a felon in possession of a firearm, a serious violation under U.S. law. He appeared in federal court in Sacramento before U.S. District Judge Troy Nunley, and on February 5, 2015, he was sentenced to 27 months in federal prison and ordered to participate in a 500-hour substance abuse treatment program while incarcerated. For most defendants, that would have been the end of the story, a brief headline in a California courtroom. But for Meeks, the twist came after the conviction. The same mugshot that documented his fall from grace unexpectedly became the foundation of a modeling career. When he was released in 2016, his image had already been immortalized across social media, and within months he signed a modeling contract that turned him into an international public figure. Sinead Claremont. Under the glow of New York City's skyline, January 31, 2017 marked a night that would later unravel the public image of Sinead Claremont, one half of the Claremont twins known from Bad Girls Club and as high-profile Instagram models. That evening, she went to the Midtown East apartment of 42-year-old real estate broker James Alisi for what prosecutors described as a prostitution date. Hours later, James Alisi was found dead in his apartment from an overdose of cocaine mixed with fentanyl and alcohol. Investigators from the NYPD and the Southern District of New York soon discovered that after James's death, Sinead had stolen information from 2 of his debit cards and used it to fund a string of luxury purchases. Over the next several weeks, she spent more than $20,000 on airline tickets, clothing, rent, and other high-end items. Federal records show she also created a fake email address in James's name and impersonated him to make financial transfers, including a $1,000 payment through Western Union on April 3, 2017. Surveillance footage later confirmed her arrival at James's apartment just before 6 p.m. that night, leaving a few hours before his fatal overdose. In July 2018, federal agents arrested Sinead in Manhattan. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York charged her with conspiracy to commit wire fraud, access device fraud, and aggravated identity theft. She had built a reputation as a social media celebrity and fashion influencer, even modeling for Kanye West's Yeezy brand, but now her name appeared in federal indictments and courtroom filings. Facing mounting evidence, she pleaded guilty on November 19, 2018, to 1 count of wire fraud before U.S. District Judge Naomi Rice Buchwald. Prosecutors detailed her use of stolen financial data belonging to the deceased victim, arguing that she exploited his identity for personal luxury while never alerting authorities about his condition. On April 4, 2019, Judge Naomi sentenced Sinead Claremont to 1 year in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. The court ordered her to forfeit $5,775.27 and pay $4,696.40 in restitution. In the sentencing hearing, James Alisi's sister told the court that on January 31, 2017, her brother died and all Ms. Sinead Claremont could do was go shopping. Judge Naomi looked directly at Sinead and said, "When faced with a real test of character, you chose to steal his debit card information instead of calling 911. Daniela Rendon. She was a Miami real estate broker and self-described lifestyle influencer whose Instagram feed was filled with images of oceanfront views, high-rise glamour, and designer luxury. But behind that curated image, prosecutors say, was a scheme built on pandemic-era deception. According to federal filings in the Southern District of Florida, 31-year-old Daniela Rendon used falsified payroll records and fabricated revenue statements to obtain hundreds of thousands of dollars in government relief loans that were meant to keep real businesses alive during the COVID-19 crisis. The Department of Justice confirmed that she secured approximately $381,000 through the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, but instead of helping employees or sustaining a business, the funds were spent on leasing a 2021 Bentley Bentayga, renting a luxury Biscayne Bay apartment, paying for cosmetic dermatology procedures, and even remodeling designer shoes. The Justice Department charged her in February 2023 with 7 counts of wire fraud, 2 counts of money laundering, and 1 count of aggravated identity theft. Investigators said she used a payroll processor to issue fake paychecks to herself and associates to make the operation appear legitimate. In April 2023, she pleaded guilty to 1 count of wire fraud. At her sentencing, she submitted a letter to the court expressing remorse and admitting that she had initially justified her actions by thinking that everybody was doing it. She told the court she later realized her crimes took money away from real people who were suffering economic hardship during the pandemic. On August 17, 2023, in federal court in Miami, Judge Jose E. Martinez sentenced Daniela Rendon to 3 years and 5 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. She was also ordered to forfeit $350,000 in assets and repay nearly $200,000 in restitution. Rossi Lorathio Adams II. He was once a popular social media figure known for running a viral college-themed brand called Do It For State. While a student at Iowa State University, he created the company State Snaps, which featured party videos and memes that spread across Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter, gaining over 1 million followers. The phrase "Do It For State" became his signature slogan, synonymous with wild college culture and campus antics. But behind the internet fame, he became obsessed with one thing he didn't own: the website doitforstate.com. The domain name had been registered in 2015 by a Cedar Rapids man who used it for his own projects. Adams wanted it badly for his brand and spent years trying to buy it, but when the owner refused to sell, Adams resorted to intimidation, sending messages and even threats through friends. In June 2017, Adams took things to a violent extreme. He recruited his cousin, Sherman Hopkins Jr., a convicted felon, to break into the domain owner's home in Cedar Rapids. Adams drove Hopkins to the house and gave him a note containing step-by-step instructions for forcing the victim to log into GoDaddy.com and transfer ownership of the domain. Hopkins wore a pantyhose mask and dark glasses, carried a stolen gun and a taser, and stormed into the victim's home. Inside the house, Hopkins ordered the victim upstairs at gunpoint and demanded that he unlock his computer and perform the transfer. But when the victim refused, a violent struggle broke out. Hopkins pistol-whipped him several times, fired a shot that struck the victim in the leg, but the man managed to wrestle away the gun and shoot Hopkins multiple times in the chest. Both survived, and Adams' involvement quickly came to light. Federal prosecutors charged Adams with conspiracy to interfere with commerce by force, threats, and violence, a violation of the Hobbs Act. After a 4-day trial in April 2019, a federal jury in Cedar Rapids found him guilty. On December 9, 2019, U.S. District Judge C.J. Williams sentenced him to 14 years in federal prison, specifically 168 months, followed by 3 years of supervised release. The court also ordered him to pay $9,000 in restitution to the victim. Selena Powell. Widely known online as an Instagram model and self-styled social media personality, she was sentenced to 2 years in Colorado State Prison on June 1, 2022, after violating the terms of her probation. The sentencing stemmed from a 2015 theft ring case in which she had been placed on supervised release following her role as a getaway driver in a stolen property scheme. According to TMZ, Colorado court officials determined that Selena Powell repeatedly violated her probation by failing to comply with mandatory check-ins and other supervision requirements. Her violations prompted the judge to revoke her probation and impose a 2-year custodial sentence. When she ignored court orders and missed probation meetings, state authorities issued a warrant that led to her rearrest and eventual imprisonment. Coverage from Hip Hop DX described Selena Powell as an infamous clout chaser, noting that she was transferred to the Colorado Department of Corrections to serve her full sentence following the June 2022 hearing. Jabara Idgara, known online as Jay Mazzini, he built his reputation as an Instagram influencer who flaunted generosity. His videos showed him handing out bundles of cash to strangers, employees at fast food chains, and community members, a self-styled image of success, faith, and wealth that drew nearly 1 million followers. But beneath the charisma was a multi-layered fraud that prosecutors later called a betrayal of trust, especially toward those who believed in him most. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York, between 2019 and 2021, Ibarra used his social media fame to carry out overlapping wire fraud and money laundering schemes. Through false promises of high returns, he convinced investors, many from his own Muslim American community, to hand over large sums of money, claiming their funds would be used for legitimate business opportunities such as stock trading, electronics resale, or COVID-19 protective equipment. Instead, prosecutors said, Ibarra diverted most of the money for personal use, funding his lavish lifestyle and gambling habits rather than the investments he advertised. At the same time, he orchestrated another elaborate fraud through cryptocurrency deals. Using his Instagram fame, he told followers he would buy Bitcoin from them at prices above market value. He sent forged wire transfer receipts as proof of payment, but the victims never received the money, and he kept their cryptocurrency instead, stealing millions of dollars in digital assets. By early 2021, the illusion collapsed, and federal investigators began tracing the frauds to his accounts, and in March 2021 he was arrested. In November 2022, he pleaded guilty in Brooklyn federal court to wire fraud conspiracy, and money laundering, admitting to defrauding investors and cryptocurrency sellers of more than $8 million. On April 24, 2024, U.S. District Judge Frederick Block sentenced Ibarra to 84 months in federal prison. The court also ordered him to forfeit $10 million, with restitution to his victims to be determined later. The Department of Justice noted that his case stands as a reminder of how easily appearances of online generosity can mask calculated deception. Danielle Miller. In the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, a Miami woman named Danielle Miller built an online image of luxury and success. Her Instagram account showcased private jets, five-star hotels, and designer handbags, the life of a self-made influencer. But what her followers didn't know was that the money fueling those lavish scenes came from stolen identities and pandemic relief funds meant for struggling Americans. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Massachusetts, between July 2020 and May 2021, Miller carried out a $1.5 million fraud scheme using the names and social security numbers of real people. Investigators found she used their personal information to open bank accounts, apply for economic injury disaster loans and pandemic unemployment assistance, and even to lease apartments and book luxury travel. She used counterfeit driver's licenses with her photo but other people's names, and at one point chartered a Gulfstream private jet from Florida to California using a Massachusetts victim's stolen identity. Court records show that in May 2021, law enforcement agents arrested Miller and uncovered evidence linking her to multiple fraudulent applications and fake identification documents. Federal prosecutors in Boston charged her with wire fraud and aggravated identity theft. In March 2023, she pleaded guilty to 3 counts of wire fraud and 2 counts of aggravated identity theft, admitting that she had used stolen identities to obtain pandemic relief funds and flaunted the proceeds on Instagram. On September 7, 2023, before Chief U.S. District Judge F. Dennis Saylor IV in Boston Federal Court, Danielle Miller was sentenced to 60 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release, and ordered to pay restitution. If you enjoyed this and want to see more interesting videos, I'm going to be posting every day on this channel. I would really appreciate it if you like and subscribe. Thank you very much.